All right, welcome to CALI's webinar. I'm Deb Quintel, Director of Curriculum Development, and our presenter today is my colleague, Elmer Masters, Director of Technology. The chat is disabled. We'll be able to push information to you in it. And if you have any questions, please use the Q&A button that should be somewhere on your Zoom screen. Thanks, and Elmer, I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Deb. Good afternoon, everybody, at the very end of October here. That is until we get to tomorrow, which is Halloween and a full moon all at the same time. And a reminder that our webinar series continues next week when we'll be talking about E. Langdell. And then on Friday the 13th, so we're catching all the big, fun Friday dates. Next Friday, or the Friday the 13th, we'll be talking about QuizWright and CALI Author on the web. Okay, so LessonLive. So last week we talked about LessonLink, which lets you assign lessons to your students, and then gives you back the grade information and some other analytics stuff. So LessonLive is a feature that that's built on top of LessonLink that lets you run the lessons live in the classroom. Although if you're not in a classroom right now, which a lot of folks aren't, it's basically a way to run a CALI lesson synchronously with a group of students. So it can be done, with everybody in a Zoom room. Or you could just all be sort of gathered in any kind of chat space, or even not, because as you'll see, it'll list the students, so you can sort of like keep track of maybe who's there and who isn't while you do this live. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of background about LessonLive, just a tiny little bit, and then we're going to dive right in with a sort of demonstration. And you get to participate if you have a CALI website account, which you should, but I know a lot of people don't, or they don't remember what it is. That's okay. But if you do have one, you'll be able to log into the website and actually run the lesson along with this. The lesson is all about, it's just about CALI, so it's just kind of fun, some fun facts and stuff. So what we're going to do is, so that the thing with LessonLive is, as I said, it allows you to run a lesson with your students synchronously. So everybody can run the lesson at the same time. And as the teacher in the class, you can follow along, where you can actually see the students' responses as they come in, and as they work through things. There's also a feature that will allow you to keep them on the same page that you're on, in case they drift off, which can happen. And it's all set up and ready to go as part of LessonLink. So if you're, it requires the teacher to run the LessonLink, and then the students will run the same link, and it just sort of starts from there. It's automatic. If students have already run the LessonLink and stuff, that can get sort of a little complicated because the data already being there, and so it might get a little muddy, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So if you plan on using LessonLive, I would suggest creating the LessonLink just prior to class and sharing it with your students, so that they're running it for the first time as they're looking at it in class. And as I said, you'll get some more advanced data than just sort of right wrong type things as the lesson goes along, that you'll be able to look at later. And then after we get done looking at LessonLive directly, we'll then take a look at the lesson analytics that are built on top of that, but are also available for any LessonLink. So the lesson analytics that we provide give you sort of the ability to drill down into the how the students perform on a question by question basis, so that you can use those analytics. I mean, I like to think of analytics as providing like actionable information, right? So I'm looking at something, the computer's giving me enough information for me to take a look at that data and make a decision about how what I want to do. And so it's kind of about finding patterns as the data gets displayed, and we'll take a look at that. And one key thing about the analytics is that stuff's available after it's just available, after the lessons run completely. So the LessonLive data is saved as part of the result sets that's available through reporting for LessonLink. So it just all sticks around. So let me share my screen here. So the first thing I'm going to pop up when I do a share here, and Deb, if you want to share that link if you happen to be signed in, if Deb just put a link in the chat that you can click on, or you can type it in from the from the Zoom screen. I don't think you can copy and paste it from Zoom. We do get that question though. So here's so what we're going to do is we're going to go to this set of lesson links. And then we're going to kick off. So in order to even look at this, you need to be logged in. So if you have your account handy and you log in, that's fine. Otherwise, you can sit back and enjoy the show, because I'm going to sort of talk us through it as we go anyway. And I know for the CALI staff folks that are listening, because see, they're sort of like, they're my ringers, right? So they're gonna participate, and so that we'll definitely have some data there. So for the CALI staff folks, if you want to click on that link and get ready to go. So that link takes you to this page. Now, as you remember, or as you may recall from last week, the faculty view of the course of lesson links has an administrative block at the top here that gives you the ability to do extra stuff, right? The student view, though, if a student is logged in, this is what they see. So there's no block. Excuse me. There's just the title of the lesson and the lesson link URL. So what we're going to do is dive right in. So as the teacher, when I click on the lesson link URL here, that will open up the browser. And I can see some of you have already clicked on it, right? And let me just make this, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. There we go. So that everybody can see it better. Hopefully this won't cause too much trouble later. But so when you do this as a teacher, this is what you see. Okay, so you've got a note up here that's LessonLive, and that's important because that's reminding you that you're looking at sort of what's going on in real time. The logo up here about self-published. This is a lesson that from the CALI library that I opened in CALI Author on the web and made a couple of changes to, and then published, and then created the lesson link and that sort of stuff for. So this is essentially like my own lesson that turns up here. You'll see the list of participants on the right. And this is basically, so right now we've got, I guess we're up to 9 students who followed. And you notice there's a giant size checkbox that says de-anonymize participant names. They show up as anonymous, and as we work through the lesson, you won't see any student names unless I click this box. Now, the reason that we have it set up like this, so that it's anonymous, is so that if you're using it in a class and you want to display this screen for some reason, like generally this might be the kind of thing that you'd have running on a tablet or a laptop while you're projecting something else, like maybe the lesson itself without the student or without the teacher stuff on it. But if you want to see who it is, and this will actually be important later when we look at the analytics, you can click this box, and that shows you the list of names, and those are the students who are actually participating. And as you can see, as people come on board, the list grows. So if you're just watching, that's fine. This is what the student sees when they run it. So you'll see there's no information block on the right about the list of other students. It just says LessonLink at the top, not LessonLive. But it is the same lesson. And then we'll notice now we're over here to 14 students. And if I de-anonymize this, student comma Jane is the student on the right hand of the screen up here. So we're there. So now here's an interesting thing about this, okay? The students can still work through the lesson at their own pace, right? So they just simply click the next button and sort of, carry, go along, right? So as a student, I click it, I get the all about CALI heading, and then I get some questions, the did you know questions, which, kind of ask you, some things about CALI, and then you can click those and then sort of work your way through. So as a teacher, when I click on the next button, right, I've still got my list of participants here. I might need to make this smaller, but we'll know in a second. That's okay. So so now I can see that there have been student responses, right? So 2 of 14 students have responded to this page. Okay. So and if anybody's out there, I know you are. If you start clicking on those, you'll see that the numbers start going up, right? So now I've got 4 of 14 and 6 of 14 as people are working through this, working through the process here. Okay. And then and again, you can keep it anonymous. And then if you want to actually see the individual student responses as we're going through, you can click on that button, and that actually shows you the anonymized versions of what students actually selected. Okay. And so right now we're like at 100%, and we can see a little bar chart in the bottom. 73% said yes, I knew that, and 25%, oh, now it's changed a little, 75%, and then 25% said that's impressive, I didn't know that. So that's, and then you can continue working through the lesson. So we go to the next page, and we can see that students have already started responding there. So we can take a look at that, and that'll give us the numbers there. Now, one of the things that can happen, of course, is as you're, and then you can work through the whole lesson like that. Now, suppose though that we know that students are sort of working ahead. The CALI conference. Yes, I've been there. We go on next to, this is about Classcaster, so we'll say yes, I knew about that. But as a teacher, you want to talk about something that's back on this previous page, right? On 2 of 4 instead of 4 of 4. So what you can do is the students can actually go back to this page, whatever page you're on, automatically by you just simply ask them to click on the LessonLink logo, and I'm going to ask you to do that if you're actually somewhere else in the lesson right now. If you click on the LessonLink icon at the top, this will actually take you back to the page that the teacher's looking at, wherever it is in the lesson. So I'm going to click on that. I jump automatically back to the page that the teacher's on. So we built this so that to allow for faculty to bring students back to talk about a particular page in a lesson, even though they might be working further ahead or behind. And this allows faculty to highlight specific parts of the lesson as they use it in actually live in class. Let's see. So we can sort of wander through this. We can wander through the whole lesson like this, and you get the idea about how this can work, and what it looks like as folks are clicking on things. Now, the way that this lesson's constructed, there aren't any, well, there actually are wrong answers later, but it would show as red here if students had actually gotten any questions wrong. And then, so then that way, you could actually see what those percentages look like. If we jump into this section, we have some text there, and actually, if everybody clicks on the lesson link icon, that'll jump you right to the that page that I'm currently on, and we could carry on for into that section, right? And then there's a lot of again, one of the things about CALI lessons is often there are text pages that are explaining things to you, and so there can be a fair amount of reading involved, and then we get to the next the next set of questions, and again we can watch. Now this time some people got this answer wrong, so now we see it as red, and that gives you sort of a better idea of just what's going on. So so that's like sort of the general way that like LessonLive itself just works, right? I mean, you can, all this can happen, and obviously y'all are spread all over the place. I might de-anonymize this for a second and see if nobody from Hawaii is here. But you can, you get the idea. So these things can be done. Folks are essentially everywhere. So it works well as a way to work through a lesson synchronously with your students while you're in Zoom or whatever other conferencing package you're using. And you could also do the same thing, even if you don't have, even if you're just using like a forum, right? So where students can type things in and ask questions and that sort of stuff while you're working through the lesson. That could work too. And then, so there's that. Deb, does anybody, because I'm not really paying attention to the Q&A too much, are there any questions popping up at this point? Does anybody have any questions about LessonLive itself before we sort of get into
there are
analytic
questions. There are not yet questions about LessonLive.
Gotcha. All righty then. So at this point, this is sort of, it's kind of, there's not a lot to demo here, right? So It's just sort of working together to work through lessons, and allowing you as the teacher to sort of see the results as they come back in real time. Now there are, of course, so one of the things, of course, that can happen with CALI lessons is they have branching, right? So depending on how you answer a question might take you to a different spot in the lesson, right? And that's why and there are some branches in this lesson if we actually like step through the whole thing. But again, using the LessonLink feature at the top of the page, you can always have the students come back to where you want them to be as they work through the lesson. And depending on the complexity of the lesson, I mean, that's something you should really take a look at as you're preparing to use the lesson for a course or for a class, because more complex lessons might not work quite so well in this sort of uh, uh, format where you're working through them. And you also want to take a look at something like the time factors, right? I mean, there are 4.5 hour. We still have some lessons that run over 4 hours, and so it'd be difficult, obviously, to do those in the normal sort of the normal allotted time for a course, for a class rather, no matter whether it's online or in the room. And you can always pick and choose pages to work through also, and then just sort of navigate through those. So that's LessonLive in a nutshell. What we're going to do now is take a look at the analytics portion of this. So, and again, this is available both for LessonLive things, like sort of like right here, and it's also available for any LessonLink sets also. So and one of the things about it is it's set up to be not anonymous. So we're going to de-anonymize the names. And then then it opens up a little button that says Lesson Analytics, and we're going to click on that. So we get a new tab, and it gives us some of the basic sort of information here, right? So, so we're looking at this is sort of the same general grade information that you would get just from the regular kind of grade page on the CALI space. Now, the one difference here is if you're looking at this in a with just a lesson link generally, right, where students may have run the lesson more than once, the scores that you see reflected here are based on their first response to a question, even if they've run it even if they've worked through the lesson multiple times. So if they work partway through a lesson and they answer, the first 5 of 10 questions on the first go round, and so then you would see those results here, and then they open the lesson again and they work through all 10 lessons, or all 10 questions rather. The results to be reflected here would be the results from the first 5 that they did the first time that they answered the first time that they worked on the lesson, and then it would pick up the remaining 5 from that second time. So if a student works all the way through the lesson, the very first time they follow the lesson link, then those will be the responses that are reflected here. If they do it in multiple sittings, or if they start the lesson more than once, then you're going to get kind of an aggregate definition. And we did that because the way that we save information about the response to a particular question in the system is we take the first answer that you give, no matter what it is. So if you check a box and it's the wrong answer, that's fine. You might get some feedback, but then you check the correct box, to look at the feedback or maybe even the wrong response prompts you to check the first, check the other answers so you can read the feedback. We're only recording that first incorrect answer. So we brought that sort of thing through into the analytics. So we can also then expand the student performance section here. So we can include, we can do this, and then this lines them up with the student number. And so that was in the anonymous space before, and then we can also include all the dates. And since everybody's only run this lesson one time, nothing else really sort of pops up here. Okay. But the really good stuff happens down here, right? So we can actually look at the combined. So this is the combined results for all students for a given page and a given question. Okay, and on regular lessons, this will take you back into lesson text so that you can actually look at the specifics of the question. That doesn't always work properly for self-published lessons and for QuizWright quizzes, so I'm not going to click on that and then try to explain it later. But it basically takes you into the lesson text, the giant HTML file for the lesson, for CALI lessons, that shows you all of the questions and all the answers. So we see the breakdown here, and it's sorted by score initially. So you can get an idea of where folks are doing the best. So did you know 4 of 4 actually maybe folks weren't really getting that, and so there's some incorrect answers there. So the way that this becomes useful in terms of using this as information that you can use in your class is that as you go down the list, and you can see that 10 people did 4 of 4, 10 people responded, but 4 of them got it wrong. Well, maybe this is a point where you want to spend a little bit more time, and go back and cover that point again, or offer some additional material, or maybe engage the students in a little bit of discussion about why so many people came up with the wrong answer there. We can also, there's another checkbox here that pops open the very specifics about who did what on these questions, so that you can actually see specifically that how folks answered. Okay. And then we can actually push it even further and actually get the student responses for each question, right? So, on the ones where everybody's getting everything right, that's fine. You figure the students picked up what it is that they needed to know there. And then you get down into things where it's, where folks making alternative picks or getting things wrong. And this will give you an idea who they were. Now, obviously, you really don't want to show this screen on, the giant, on the projector screen for the, share this with the class, because, you probably don't want to, be, sort of, pointing out to people who got what right and what wrong for certain things. So, and then, but this gives you an idea by looking at these analytics. You can get an idea of, what, probably what's going on with, with the class, and how students are answering things. And are there students who maybe are consistently getting questions wrong? when they should be getting them right. I mean, sometimes another reason to take a look at the lesson and the question as you're going through this often is sometimes the authors actually design a question that they intend for students to get wrong. Little known fact, because it's it's a complicated concept that people easily misconstrue, right? That they don't quite get, and so the answer that seems to be the answer that seems to be right is actually wrong, and they put in that sort of simple answer, and then that allows for that's where like branching comes in, right? So somebody gets a wrong answer, it takes them to more information about how about that particular point in the law, and some and tries to help them work through a better understanding of the issue that they just answered incorrectly on. So all of this is available. If we jump back to the course page, you can get at all of this information after a session by clicking on the View Grades button anywhere that it appears. It's here, it's on the LessonLink pages. And then we can get back to analytics. I'm actually going to close this one so I don't run into weird, because who knows what's going to happen if I have too many tabs open. Okay, so when you're looking at, this is the your current LessonLink list, you can click on the analytics button, and that will take you back into that set of resources. And this is available even if you didn't use LessonLive. So any LessonLink lesson will have this information available, so that you can go back in and take a look at what students are doing. Okay.
Elmer, I've got some questions.
That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
I've got some questions.
Okay,
here.
Deb.
Do you want to take a break for some questions?
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely ready for questions,
All right,
Deb.
excellent.
Fire away.
So does it matter which type of device a student runs LessonLive on?
It should not. So they can follow the links and run the lesson on a phone or a tablet or a computer. That said, it's always tough to judge what people's connectivity is in a remote setting, or exactly what the hardware is that they're using. Where I sit in Middle Georgia, I have really bad cell reception. So if I was trying to do this on my cell phone without Wi-Fi, it would not work properly, because I just don't have enough cell phone connectivity for that to work. So that's something to consider. The best results, students should be on Wi-Fi with their device. They should be using the most modern browser that they can. Things should be updated as much as they can be in order to get best results.
Great, thank you. Second question, is there a way to lock students out from answering questions ahead of time, while in progress? So in other words, you walk into the classroom and you hand them this URL, just as if we have done today. Is there a way to keep students from pushing ahead?
No.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying that point. All right. Here's the next question.
Although I do actually, let me wait.
Yeah,
So the answer is no. The answer is no. We don't do that, right?
Right.
But I knew that somebody was going to ask that question, because it is the kind of thing that teachers wonder about when they look at this. And the reason why that doesn't happen is it goes back to the design of the lessons themselves, which are for self-paced learning with immediate feedback. So sort of stopping that flow would actually require us to actually alter the lessons and the viewers to make them fit that paradigm, and that's a technical issue and a design thing that that we probably won't do.
All right.
Just to clarify.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for the details. All right, the next category is firewalls. So if a school has what is referred to as a serious security firewall, what should the school do to ensure that their students have access to the materials? Are you locking out LessonLive?
As far as I know, we haven't seen that. So this runs in a web browser. You need to allow for pop-ups generally for CALI, and it has to accept the cookies from CALI. And it has to run, and the browser has to have JavaScript. So but there aren't any like sort of, if you can run CALI lessons generally, this should work, because it's not looking, because so the sort of the mechanical details are: a student runs the lesson, and every time they answer a question, that gets sent back to the database on our database, and then the teacher view is just continually asking the database if there's any new data, right? And then it feeds that data back into the teacher's web browser. So it's really just a continually refreshing web page, essentially. So as long as if you can shop from Amazon on your desktop in your office, I'm pretty sure this will work. But if you're having specific issues with firewalls, which we've seen, just drop me a note, emasters@cali.org, and we'll try and take a look at it. But generally, it should just work.
Great. I'll drop your email address in chat in just a second. So this question is about analytics. Sometimes it's useful to compare my fall 2019 course lesson links with my fall 2020 lesson links and LessonLive information. How long are the analytics archived for? How long is the information stored for?
So the information stored forever, basically. I mean, so all the lesson information, we're currently sitting on like 17 years worth. So the information will be available, sort of, as long as we're around. And we just hang on to it. So, and if that ever changes, we'd certainly let the community know well ahead of time, and figure out what that means. But I don't see that happening. I mean, we just basically student lesson information is recorded, and then that's available. If you've been using LessonLink, that's just available. It would then be talking about stuff from previous years, that would turn up under the LessonLink archives tab, which I don't have any because this is a new shiny account. So but if I had stuff from last year, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, that information would turn up on this archive lesson links page. And there's also then an analytics button that goes with each one of the lessons, so you can actually go back and look at stuff. Also, I would be interested if you're doing that, if you're comparing year to year results, I'd certainly be interested. Actually, I think you might too, Deb, wouldn't you say, in how in sort
Absolutely.
of in a general way, like how students are doing over time with these. So.
It would also be interesting for us to see the analytics regarding whether a particular question is uniformly missed by students from year to year. We do look for that information, and then I work with the authors, so I go back to them and gently suggest that maybe the question needs to be modified, unless it is, as the type Elmer mentioned before, that everyone is intended to get wrong as some sort of a further learning experience with branching questions, or to clarify a common misconception. I've got a couple more questions here for you, Elmer. So hypothetical for you. My class has 100 students, and can all of the students be seen? How would my list of anonymous students just keep scrolling down and down and down? And also, as I'm running this lesson live, would there be a lag time in response to questions, to students' responses coming in, and the time that I'd have to wait before I could press that reveal button that you showed us before?
Okay, so the second part of that I'll take first. There shouldn't really be any lag time, just because the database is really fast. So so that's straightforward. So there shouldn't be any lag. If, as far as what happens with the list of students and how many there can be in there, I don't know offhand. Sam, if Sam's on here, maybe drop us something in Slack, Sam, about what happens, because I'm trying to remember. I haven't seen a long list in a long time. I know there are folks who've used this in first year sections. So I assume that there might be a point at which it sort of starts to scroll, so it doesn't make the page like way too long. And
I
as a
actually have a lesson 400. I'm just realizing I'm going into my library now. I have a lesson with 400 people who took it. So let me give you another question, Elmer, to work on, and I'm going to pull up behind the scenes my my lesson link and see. All right. If an author changes a question from one year to the next, is that highlighted in the analytics?
No. Actually, no, it isn't. It isn't highlighted, and not something that that I don't think, but maybe it should be. It just basically, so the analytics takes the question, the lesson as it is, and it doesn't look for things like questions that changed from year to year, that sort of stuff. Um, the way that our for CALI lessons, the way that the update and editing process works, um, you know, I'm not sure that there would be an easy way for us to do that sort of thing, but it's an interesting question.
One workaround I think would be for that, if you're going to change the question, change the name of the page, the question page also. And then basically you'd have a new question page that you would know that the question is Notice and Knowledge 2020 semester or something, as opposed to what its original name was. That might be a cheap workaround for you. And I'm still trying to pull up, so I've got a lesson here, and I'm still trying to pull up what the information looks like. And my memory is, and I'll have this posted later, but my memory is that it just made a long scrolling list of student names.
Student
And I think
names,
it just scroll.
yeah. And
Right.
one thing that I was thinking about when I was looking, while we were doing this, was that it might be nice to just sort of hide that list, period. Um, you know, it's there as sort of a visual cue, but it might be nice to have a way to just sort of make it shrink up to like a little, expand the box sort of thing. so that it can be moved out of the way, especially if it gets really long, because it could mess with the length of the page. See, that's why one of the reasons why these webinars are so helpful for us is we get ideas from people. Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
No, I think those are the questions that we've got right now. I'll let you continue on. Thank you.
I'm kind of done.
Oh, wait, so this might be someone's, oh no, it's people thanking you. Oh, yes.
All right.
All right, everyone's, the flowers are being thrown on the stage, Elmer. Thanking you. All right.
Yeah, I covered
So,
everything I wanted to cover. And then, and again, we'll remind people we're going to be talking about E. Langdell books next week. And then QuizWright and CALI Author on the web on the 13th of November. So, and then we'll see where this goes from there. But it's been, it's been great. So if anybody has any other questions that come up, just shoot me an email, emasters@cali.org. And thank you.